Welcome to SpacePod, a friendly place for like minds to meet up and talk about their perspective on the world of space, the space we use as humans and how it is changing. My name is Paul Russell and I work for IBM. So again, let me introduce my great colleague, another Paul, Mr. Paul Gatlin, who is part of the team helping customers solve space challenges through software, otherwise known as Paul G. Welcome.
Hello, Paul. Good afternoon.
And our special guest today, Mike Gedye, who's Head of Technology Sector Vertical at CBRE. Welcome to SpacePod, Mike. I really appreciate your time. We're so lucky. And I think we've got some congratulations to you on your new job.
Thanks, guys. Strange times to be changing jobs, actually, because I've been stuck in my study and office ever since. But yeah, we as an organisation, big real estate advisory company, have pivoted around our client structure now that we're managing it around industry types. And I'm excited really to be given the task of growing our technology vertical. So supporting clients such as IBM with everything in the real estate stack, including digital advice around the workplace, and bringing new products, new services, and hopefully providing some insights into what next and where's the future taking us.
These podcasts are really personal views. So Mike, given this uncertain time, we always like to know where people are in the world, because we've had some interesting locations previously. So tell us, where are you right now?
I'm at home, funnily enough, like many of you, but I have a very small box room, which has become my cabin fever place of work for the last 6-8 weeks. I have 2 teenage kids at home, also eating bandwidth and working from home, and my wife is also working from home. So we're all juggling space and juggling bandwidth and generally remaining friends most of the time.
So actually, you've kind of led into this idea that we're now in this world where we now have a lot more choice, if we're lucky, about where we can actually do our work. So this phrase I'm beginning to hear a lot more in IBM and elsewhere about autonomous workplaces. You know, great 2 words, probably mean so many different things. So what's your view, first take on autonomous workplace?
Yeah, well, for me, actually, it's the word autonomy is about freedom of controls as well as choice of where and how you work. So actually, autonomous and touchless are probably the 2 words that I would put together in terms of a building and a workplace that runs seamlessly without you having to physically intervene in its operation. Now, in the context of home working, we're not in a mechanical environment. We're in a kind of very much a kind of more organic environment, but the technology is what is autonomous, right? The seamless connection on a Zoom call that we're on today. But as we start to trickle back to the traditional workplace, it's going to be a question mark of how can you manage that seamlessly. We were already talking about the frictionless office where we're trying to manage the productivity of people by removing the kind of interventions you have to make from access control to finding a seat, wayfinding, booking services, etc. But I think there's been a layer of disruption that is COVID related, which is about anxiety around safety. And clearly, the less you touch in a public place, the more safe you'll be from the potential risk of contamination from any future outbreak of any issues around COVID. So I think we're going to see more people adopting more technology around touchless and autonomous buildings in terms of using apps for control of the building, access, lifts, and also the whole systems of booking and the environments and services you need.
You posted something recently, it really intrigued me. It's called Risk and Reward for People and Technologies. And you were talking there about concentration levels, which I think for a lot of people, especially working from home, is a huge problem now when they're faced with uncertain environment at home, children, dogs, Amazon deliveries, I think we talked about. So this VUCA world that we're in, you know, what do you think about that? You talked about that quite a lot, about flow, and I'm just love to hear a little bit more.
Focus of many organizations, understandably, is on a physical return to work, i.e. how do we manage cleaning regimes, cleaning filters, air quality, how do we access the space through public transport? And it's very easy to overlook the human impact of this return to work, and not only in terms of the anxiety of people making that journey itself, and also then being in more public places away from the kind of safety of our homes, but also to not overlook the fact that what is currently a global pilot of home working is maybe effective for a few weeks and maybe up to a month or so. But once you get into long-term sustained home working, there are some material things to think about in terms of people's well-being and mental well-being at that, because not everyone is set up ideally to continue this experiment forever. we were already doing some quite interesting research into the process of flow, which is the concentrated, uninterrupted ability to deliver a task. And some work we've been doing with Booking.com and their new headquarters we're building for them in Amsterdam really gave us some real clear insights into understanding the function of a person and their personality, i.e. are they an introvert or an extrovert, and what is their role? Are they doing sales, sort of people-facing activities, or analytical kind of task-based work? And to design space and to provide the digital framework to maximize people's ability to maintain flow was a key factor in the strategy for Booking.com, but it should be now for any organization that is working in a very fluid environment. And we talked about autonomous workplaces. I think we're also referring to a concept of fluidity of workplaces, where the ability to work seamlessly between a home office, the transit between buildings, and then into your physical office needs to be tied in with a very seamless digital wrapper that allows that access to data, access to resources, communication tools, etc., to maintain that ability to continuously work without any interruption.
I love some of the fluidity thing. I really resonates. So I know, Paul, you've been doing a bit of digging around about what's been going on in Mike's world, and you've got a question for him.
Recently at the ISG Workplace Future Summit, there was a discussion from the panel around defining the organizational skills set to be fighting fit in 2025. And, I'd like to hear your view on this, and particularly what is happening is creating a new type of workplace or workspace leader.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because we could go back into a postcode environment with the same organizational structures, and the risk then is that we're very human, and we go back in a piece of elastic into working how we used to work. And certainly what I find in crisis is that it brings functions together and has removed many of the silos that have prevented us from transforming businesses. So we're seeing people and HR functions working far more closely with real estate and the technology teams and the business stakeholders to accelerate change. And I think therefore that the challenge for organizations will be to reimagine what is that functional structure going to be going forward to sustain that change. And we were in a piece of work we wrote, we published a piece of research called Responsive Real Estate 2030, which was looking at 10 years ahead of roles that might come into our world of real estate. And at that time, pre-COVID, we were talking about the idea of a chief places officer becoming a critical function, i.e. someone who curates the user experience in the workplace and creates the combination of services and amenities and allows people to combine that live, work, play kind of environment to the best effect. And post-COVID, I think we've got a new role which may emerge, and this is a personal view, but the idea that you would probably need a digital workplace officer, someone who is responsible for managing that integration between the home and the physical and the digital, and providing the resources into a kind of virtual landscape to allow your workforce to be both effective in what they do, but also looking after their well-being and their general health as they become always on. The risk was always, if you connect with people and working constantly, that's not good for your long-term health either. So managing that work-life balance is going to be even more critical going forward.
Just on that theme, as we shift to sort of different group of people, and I'm thinking now about property owners, investors, pausing business developments and really hunkering down on what they've already got, trying to work out what do they do with it. I just wanted to know, is this a trend that you even see, or do you think actually there's a different view, a glass half full view regarding how people are going to look towards business developments?
You know me, I'm an optimist, right? And I think many of the organizations that we work with, investors and occupiers, are trying to embrace a half full attitude, because it really does provide an opportunity to reimagine the workplace of the future. And I think whether you're a developer or landlord of a primary office building, or you're an operator of a co-working or flex environment, certainly there is both a challenge and a need to reinvent yourself, because one of the question marks that the occupiers are thinking and the consumer, the employee is thinking, is why would I need to go to work? And if you keep the product as it was, I think it becomes very quickly irrelevant. And therefore the opportunity is to reinvent this place of work, which is designed around things you can't achieve at home. So you can't achieve at home the seamless innovation and serendipity that you can in a collaborative environment where you're face to face with colleagues and partners and suppliers. You can't achieve at work social interaction that you can face to face. So you can't achieve that at home as virtually as you can in the physical environment. So, and the other piece is you need to give people a new gold standard around health and well-being, because that's going to be very acutely in the mind of the consumer. So for me, the landlord or developer or operator of a workplace that designs it around a very distinctive, high quality product, which really has at its heart the health and wellness of its user, but also designs it around creating unique opportunities for collaboration, co-creation, innovation, and connecting people in ecosystems, and quite fluidly. So rather than having discrete siloed places, but creating more public spaces where we can interact with our partners, I think that will be a highly attractive product and will form a key component of any portfolio strategy that a company has as they combine home working, which will grow in its demand and popularity, plus satellite and flexible spaces around the edges, and then these new, what we would call a trophy office, where this new prime space is designed and delivered and operated for the benefit of both the enterprise and the consumer.
Number of things there. Now I know, Paul, you've been doing a bit of reading about some of the work that Mike's involved in, and I know you've got a thought regarding one of the documents you've been reading, which I think Mike's already mentioned already.
Yeah, no, I have. I mean, this is the responsive real estate document. So yeah, I was very interested, Mike, around the 5G workplace and your thoughts, around that. And I particularly liked the the transition really from baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and so on. So yeah, be really interested to hear your view on that.
Like it's always a risk when you publish things and then there's a crisis that happens immediately after you publish it, right? And this was especially when you're looking 10 years forward. And what we found, we've done two pieces of research in the last 2 or 3 years. One was looking at Portfolio 2040, which was a very long-term view, which is where we actually first conceptualized the idea of a trophy office. And the second was the one which was published literally in the weeks that we approached lockdown globally. And amongst what's reassuring from the research is that what we think was going to happen in 10 years will still happen, but what's interesting is we think it's going to happen far quicker. And the conversation related to the hotelification of the workplace, i.e. a service amenity rich piece, which I've already talked about. We talked about fluidity of portfolios and how we're going to see combinations of different spaces. Again, we've already talked about it. And there was one other thing that we talked about, which was the 5G plus office. And we were talking there not about connectivity and 5G, but we were talking about 5 generations coexisting in the workplace, and that was the baby boomer alongside the Gen X and the millennial and the Gen Z, and that's obviously 4. And the 5th, our prediction was you had a new friend called AI that represented a whole new generation of workforce working alongside the remaining 4. And I think that's definitely going to accelerate. We're seeing already in terms of the need for this virtual landscape to support working. And I think AI, because it is cloud-based, because it is fluid and is able to be always on and always available wherever you are, is going to be the key component of a successful integrated workplace of the future.
Now, I'm conscious of our time because I know we could carry on, and I unfortunately have to be a timekeeper here, but I do think there's lots of questions we're probably busying around in our heads. And Paul, I know I'm going to ask you to ask Mike for a closing question, but I have one, Mike, for you while Paul goes through his thinking on that. So the question I've got for you, Mike, is, in the last few weeks, either have you or any of your customers learned something you did not expect, whatever that might be, about yourself in terms of working from home, or how your clients working, or anything that you've seen that...
What did I not expect? I didn't expect organizations to move so seamlessly to entire virtual working without too much disruption. I was surprised how quickly people embraced a collaborative, there's Zooms and Teams and Google Hangouts, whatever you want to call them, but how people embraced, funny enough, the first thing I noticed very quickly happened was people turned on their cameras. And you go back to Cisco telepresence, we've been doing video conferencing for decades, right? But mostly with the cameras off because people didn't want to have that facial integration. But now I think wholly everyone's embraced that, and it's transformed the way that you can collaborate virtually. Other things not expecting, I think people are resilient, and after the initial sort of crisis management of what the hell's going on, I think people have started to look forward with real optimism around what can we do next. And without question, most of our clients are now thinking about not just the return to work and tactically how do you get people back in, but what could this mean for the future? And the conversation we've had in this short podcast is an example of a conversation I'm having every day with every client we work with.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I loved your answer, and I echo a lot of that. So, Paul, have you got a final question for Mike?
What my thoughts were is around, if you sort of go back to Second World War, which is obviously a significantly large crisis. Technology was massively increased. If you took aircraft at the start of the war, it was almost still biplanes, and at the end they were flying jets. Do you think a crisis like COVID will accelerate change in the workplace?
We're already seeing it in both the conversations we've been having about design, the acceptance. I think I'll tell you one big change, which is more behavioural, and I think it will be one of the key things that unlocks the digitization of the future workplace, and that is the tolerance of data being shared. And that relates both to information but also movement. And I think one of the biggest barriers for the transformation of the workplace was the question of privacy, and we all got hung up on GBRD and tracing and contact information. But I think there will be a significant shift in people's attitude to what information they're prepared to be captured about them, partly down to just convenience of home working and the ability to work seamlessly in a fluid environment, but increasingly because of health, and knowing that if they can share information, so their health and well-being can be better managed by the people who look after them, whether that's a landlord or an employer. So I'm hoping that data transparency and data sharing will be completely opened up to then open up a whole world of IoT-driven buildings and sensor-driven buildings and convenience and personalization, which for me would be the next generation of the future workplace.
I'm desperate to ask tons of questions, but I know I can't, so I need to draw a line. So I can't believe we've actually run out of time, but because I know we definitely could have gone longer. So Mike, I would just want to say again a huge thank you for your time. Your insight, of course, is fantastic. And Paul, to you, my colleague, again, thank you. If you listened to SpacePod today and you liked it, can I say thank you? And please tell friends. If you want to connect with Paul and I, and obviously Mike is on LinkedIn as well, please do and reach out to us. We're friendly people. If you've been listening to SpacePod, please stay safe.